Alright, I'm, basically coming forward right now. Why? Because I'm kind of seeing something coming down the pipe that I need to try to block. And it basically boils, it has to do with this guy named Beelzebub, who calls himself Beelzebub, and he writes for the Devil's Advocate. And there's kind of like two guys that primarily write for the Devil's Advocate website. And they did some great work. They were actually pursuing the Allison Michelle Ernst connection, something that unfortunately has been scrubbed, and I can't figure out what that connection is anymore. But something weird happened there, because Beelzebub just made a statement like, I don't think it's a conspiracy. I just think we all need to chill out, and I don't know, just some kind of like a, I don't think it's a conspiracy anymore kind of weird thing, kind of like what David Cole did back when he received threats by the JDL. So I'm sitting there thinking like, wow, that's kind of weird. And then the other guy, right, I said there's two guys that run it, the other guy kind of stepped in and said, hey, it looked like somebody hacked his account and wrote that. That was the explanation. And then you think, okay, and then it says, okay, but you won't be seeing any more of Beelzebub. He's actually going to be moving on to do other things. And then boom, it's like, whoa. That's like 101 for somebody who basically got compromised or, basically received threats and backed out. Okay? Well, it's highly unfortunate, and why am I making this video? It's not against him per se, but what that avatar is now, So I'm saying, watch out for anything coming out of the Devil's Advocate website, and specifically from anything Beelzebub. And he didn't contact me, but he contacted a friend, and he contacted, just a couple friends that I've been doing interviews with. I don't like to get everyone involved. And I immediately had suspicions, because just before the primary debunking page went down, which was this Facebook group called Truth About James Egan Holmes, and I basically brought it down, according to the owner, after I revealed that the owner was an ex-convict, and I questioned the motives and the legitimacy of a debunking group with that sort of property behind it. And so that site went down. But before it went down, it said, hey, guess what? Beelzebub is back. And I was like, that's really suspicious, Well, anyway, after the site went down, Beelzebub did a piece basically sort of just immediately discovering, even though he basically sent messages to my two friends in this investigation saying to them, hey, we need to set up a sort of live web conference. And I'll be there, and my two friends will be there, and Beelzebub will be there, and we'll take, phone calls. And I'm sitting there thinking, like, this is great. Even if he is somebody who was threatened and he's no longer, it's basically like, in other words, no longer him, that there's somebody else writing using that account, then whatever, we could spread the word. Unfortunately, I think what's going on is this is a total hijacking operation of everything we're doing, and so I don't want to tag my name to him. I don't want, I hope nobody does, to legitimize his group, because apparently in the works there is going to be some sort of a timeline, like a flash timeline, to sort of like say, just put a huge stamp like, here's what we all believe, and it'll be disinfo, and it'll be a big setup, kind of almost in a way mocking the 3D timeline that I made, sort of helping show everyone what exactly happened, anyway, you can check that out. So, yeah, what's the concern here? That here we go, Beelzebub's going to come right back out of the blue after he basically looks like he got threatened, and he's going to come right back out of the blue and just completely overpronounce his dominance over the investigation when it's just completely suspect. And so what I have to do is debunk his own this is crazy, but let me say this. I have to debunk the debunking he did of himself from basically like a couple days ago. He put up a video. I mean, he put up a entry where he's talking about, wow, look at this girl. Were there explosive devices going off in 8? Because that's the big nail in the coffin. That explosive devices were going off in 8. And he talks about basically Megan Walton, how her leg got hot from the gases of the device going off near her. And so he tried to say that because of the Batgirl shirt girl video, even though he's incorrect in saying that she was on the left side, like the upper left corner, she didn't say that. She said that she was against the wall in the back. Like, she's literally saying she's, she could be in the center for all we know. She doesn't say what side she's on. It doesn't matter, but she's sitting against the wall in the back with her back against the wall. If she was in the upper left section, I've already figured this out, this would have been impossible because there's only 2 rows of chairs. And she actually had somebody sitting next to her that was in the way, and she also had her friend sitting next to her. That's already 3, that's already too many chairs that would have been there for her to be upper left. Not to mention, if she was in the upper left, she would have been right at the door. Right at the door. Instead, I'm picturing her somewhere up in the very top, somewhere towards the middle. I've already used her interview, and it's true. Her interview is very descriptive of the insides, and that's why I was able to create the 3D model that I have. The thing is that he says that she says something about vents being there, and that the gas can going off was the result of, and Megan Walton felt the gas coming through the vent, through the walls onto her leg. Now, first off, if there were these vents, people would have heard the screaming. Just from the open air, people would have heard screaming, and not to mention we have multiple accounts of people in Theater 8 just not knowing what was going on, just being completely disoriented, not being aware of what was taking place right next door. These kind of things need to be, assumed regarding the way theater walls are meant to block out sound. It doesn't matter. I'm not saying that no bullets came through the walls. I'm not saying that nobody heard what was going on over there. But what I am saying is just there's a big how do I say this, like, problem trying to cross that path. It's like, okay, the wall needs to be presumably fireproof, and then in that way it also needs to be able to block sound. So it's got like a lot of obviously it might be a supporting wall that's a very large room. So it's got a lot of things going against it, but I'm not saying that it's not impossible, even given those things that people heard or that the bullets came through. Okay, but I will tell you what's impossible is Beelzebub's idea that she felt the gases on her leg because the gases shot into a vent to go through the wall to make her feel that way. I mean, that's just out of control, absurd. And I'm going to go ahead, the reason that we can prove that. Now, first he goes through this. He's actually linking to all of my friend Historical Records Vault, all of his videos. So he obviously would have seen Richard Gage, because Megan Walton is the speech therapist friend sitting next to Gage Hankins, and Gage Hankins, I think I just said Richard Gage, forgive me on that one, but Gage Hankins is the guy who actually gets injured by this exploding device. Now they're trying to play it off like he got injured by a bullet coming through the wall, but this is just once again absurd, and you'll see what I mean in just a minute. Basically, Gage Hankins got injured by this explosive device that also caused her to feel the heat on her leg because she was wearing shorts. And the issue here is that he completely does not even bring that up. You're already talking about Megan Walton. why wouldn't you talk about Gage Hankins, who felt the same amount of heat and also felt the hole in his arm being made, the quote-unquote pressure, the immediate the immediate pressure after the explosion. I mean, the chronology that Gage Hankins says is they heard a hiss, they saw smoke, there was a loud bang, and then he felt pressure on his arm. Okay, and at that time she felt heat on her leg, and then Gage gets up, and then here's the kicker though, is that there's an interview with the teacher that came in there with whatever it is, 13 speech impediment students, because Gage Hankins has a stutter, and the teacher spins around and sees that he sees Gage Hankins holding his arm, and that he's been injured. So immediately the teacher takes him outside. But the teacher describes where they're at, and we all knew that they were sitting somewhere in the lower right section. So it's already a problem, because you wouldn't be near the wall unless you were in the upper right section, because there's the hallways that go towards the lobby on either side of these theaters. Not only that, but where there's that stairwell, so to speak, these hallway things that you come into the theater, there's this wall there. There's like a literal wall. So there's actually like the bullet, if Gage Hankins was hit by a bullet, and Gage Hankins was 4 seats down too. You have to understand, like Gage Hankins, there were people in between Gage Hankins and the wall, essentially. He says the news reports say that he was 4 seats down. Is that the bullet would have had to travel through the wall, through the wall that comes after, basically that comes after the stairwell. In other words, not the stairwell, but that entry hallway. Travel across the stairs and actually miss everybody, and then hit him in the forearm. Okay. Now, that's absurd. That's ridiculous. But to such an extent that actually, like, 4 pieces. Some reports say 3 pieces of shrapnel. Other reports say 4 pieces of shrapnel would all hit just him in the arm. Okay. The more likely scenario is that somebody sitting behind Gage Hankins, or maybe to the side of him, end up slipping a whatever it was. I'm thinking it was probably a flashbang under his seat, right? So what ends up happening is that the flashbang goes off under the seat. There's an unexpected shrapnel injury as a result. And it could have been, it very easily could have been some sort of multi-purpose grenade. But how do I say this? It's more than likely some kind of like a smoke. It could have been a smoke bomb. It could have been, flashbang. It must have not been tear gas, because they did not suffer from tear gas-like symptoms, or they did not appear to. So it could have been a smoke bomb. It could have been a flashbang. But whatever it is, he said he's heard a series of pops, like it was a firecracker kind of a thing, and that there was a lot of smoke involved, because even the teacher says he saw smoke coming down the stairwell. Okay? Coming down the stairway. So, that is, I think, indicative enough. And, Megan Walton's sitting right next to Gage Hankins, okay? So Megan Walton is not sitting near the wall. If Gage Hankins is 4 seats in, and Megan Walton is sitting right next to Gage Hankins, then that means that she's either sitting at the 3rd seat, meaning 2 people are away from the wall, or she's sitting in the 5th seat. And not only that, but the chairs next to the wall, there's only 2. Like, if you wanted to sit next to the wall, you can only be sitting next to one other person. So Beelzebub's debunking of himself, which really isn't a debunking of himself, it's a debunking of all of us who have been pushing the gas cans going off in 8 as like the knockdown World Trade Center 7 proof, probably even bigger than the World Trade Center 7 proof that the Aurora thing was a conspiracy. Okay, so he's playing it off like he's debunking himself, and it's just not true. He's debunking us. I mean, he told my friends, hey, I really like the chat, the TNN things, right? I really like the chat that you guys did. Well, what did we talk about in there? If he listened to them, then he would have known that he would have known that we would have talked about the explosive devices that went off in 8. And I encourage everyone to go watch that. But why is he acting like he actually just stumbled upon it? After he admits to us that he wants to set up this interview with us. And then he debunks himself on the same thing. No. Beelzebub is what we call damaged goods. Beelzebub is probably in the process of creating some very elaborate disinfo timeline of a flash timeline that's supposed to all go, ooh, that's so awesome, it's so conspiracy, and then it's not really, because it's a huge setup to sort of account for all of the anomalies of this event, things that a straw man that will easily be collapsed. So, Beelzebub, I don't expect you to have some kind of it's not you. First off, it's not you. I mean, if it's you, then I don't know why you would. No, it's just, please, those of you who have the half of the brain, understand what I'm talking about here. Do not let the Devil's Advocate or Beelzebub hijack and take control of this conspiracy theory thing. So I have already spoken to one of my friends, the other one I have not been able to get a hold of, and I'm letting them know, disassociate yourself from the Devil's Advocate, from Beelzebub. Do not legitimize his operation, no matter if you think you can cause any blowback, because you're only going to cause him to look like he's like on our side. He's not. He's the last dying breath of the disinformation campaign of this very obvious treasonous conspiracy against the American people.